Imagine hopping on a plane from Brazil to Beijing, no visa required, to seal a business deal or explore the Forbidden City. Sounds like a game changer, right? Well, China just made it a reality for 5 Latin American countries. China's new visa-free policy for citizens of Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, and Uruguay, starting June 1st, 2025. This isn't just about easier travel. It's a bold move with ripple effects on trade, tourism, and global influence. So, how will this shape China's ties with Latin America? Why now? And what challenges might travelers face? Let's break it down. First up, let's talk trade. China's decision to grant visa-free access to these 5 Latin American nations, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, and Uruguay, is like opening a new highway for business. For up to 30 days, citizens from these countries can enter China for business, tourism, or cultural exchanges without the hassle of visa applications. This is huge for trade, and here's why. Over the past decade, trade between China and Latin America has skyrocketed, hitting over $500 billion in 2024. China is now South America's largest trading partner, surpassing the United States. Brazil, for instance, exports massive amounts of soy, iron ore, and oil to China, while Argentina sends beef and wine. Chile's cherries and copper are staples in Chinese markets, and Peru's minerals, like lithium, fuel China's tech boom. This visa-free policy makes it easier for entrepreneurs, especially from small and medium-sized enterprises, to visit China for trade fairs, factory tours, or deal negotiations. A manager at a Tianjin-based energy firm, Sinogas, called it a real bottleneck solver for their operations in Latin America. No more waiting weeks for visa approvals. Business people can now act fast, meet partners face-to-face, and build trust. But it's not just about Latin Americans coming to China. Chinese companies, like those investing in Peru's megaport or Brazil's energy sector, can send teams to these countries more easily if reciprocal policies follow. This could accelerate projects tied to China's Belt and Road Initiative, which already includes infrastructure like Peru's Chancay port. Experts predict this policy could boost exports from Latin America, especially for smaller businesses that couldn't afford the time or cost of visa processes before. So, trade is set to get a big boost, but will it be smooth sailing? We'll get to the challenges later. This policy was announced at the 4th China CELAC Forum in Beijing in May 2025, where President Xi Jinping laid out a vision for deeper ties with Latin America and the Caribbean. CELAC, or the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, includes 33 countries, and China sees it as a key platform to counterbalance U.S. influence in the region. First, there's economics. China's economy has been rebounding since the strict COVID-19 travel restrictions ended, and opening borders is part of its high-standard opening up strategy. By easing visa rules, China wants to attract more business travelers and investors from Latin America, a region rich in resources like oil, lithium, and copper that China needs for its energy and tech sectors. Second, it's about diplomacy. China has been steadily building its soft power in Latin America through investments, cultural exchanges, and even Chinese language programs at Confucius Institutes. Offering visa-free access to 5 major economies in the region, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, and Uruguay, sends a message: China is open for business and friendship. Jorge Heine, a former Chilean ambassador to China, called it a powerful signal of China's commitment to the region. Finally, there's a strategic angle. China's global influence is growing, and Latin America is a key piece of the puzzle. By fostering closer ties, China aims to secure allies, access markets, and even sway countries away from recognizing Taiwan. This visa policy is part of a broader package, including a $9.2 billion credit line for infrastructure and 3,500 scholarships for Latin American students. It's clear, China's playing the long game. Now, let's talk tourism. This visa-free policy is a game-changer for travelers from Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, and Uruguay itching to explore China's Great Wall, Terracotta Army, or futuristic cities like Shanghai. Data from Trip, a major Chinese travel platform, shows a massive surge in interest. Tourism orders from Argentina jumped 168% in 2024, with Brazil and Chile both up over 80%. With visas out of the way, these numbers could soar even higher. Imagine a Brazilian family visiting Beijing's Forbidden City or a Peruvian student exploring Xi'an's ancient history without the hassle of paperwork. This isn't just good for tourists, it's a boon for China's hospitality sector. Hotels, airlines, and tour operators are gearing up for an influx of Latin American visitors. Xin Jing, a vice president at Trip, predicts a dynamic and reciprocal tourism boom with cultural exchanges deepening ties. For example, Latin Americans studying Chinese or Chinese students learning Spanish could travel more easily, fostering mutual understanding, but it's not one-sided. Chinese tourists might also head to Latin America, drawn by iconic destinations like Machu Picchu or Rio's Carnival. New flight routes like the 14,000-kilometer Mexico City, Shenzhen direct flight launched in 2024 make these trips more feasible. But hold on, it's not all smooth sailing. Even with visa-free access, Latin American travelers might face some hurdles. First, there's the distance. China and Latin America are literally on opposite sides of the globe. Flights from Sao Paulo to Beijing or Lima to Shanghai can take 20 to 30 hours and cost a small fortune. While new routes like Mexico City, Shenzhen help, air connectivity is still limited and prices can be a barrier for average travelers. Second, there's the language and cultural gap. Mandarin is a tough language to learn and English isn't widely spoken outside China's major cities. Navigating China without a translator or guide could be daunting for Latin Americans unfamiliar with the culture. Federico Carabajal, an Argentinian winemaker living in China, praised the country's safety but noted that cultural differences can be a shock. Third, there's logistics. The visa-free policy allows only 30 days, which might not be enough for complex business trips or extended cultural exchanges. Plus, travelers need valid passports and proof of purpose, which could still involve red tape. And if other Latin American countries like Mexico or Colombia don't get similar access, regional disparities could spark tensions. Finally, there's geopolitics. Some Latin American travelers might face scrutiny due to China's strict security measures or concerns about foreign influence. These challenges could temper the policy's immediate impact. So, what's the bigger picture? This visa-free policy is a chess move in China's grand strategy for Latin America. For over 2 decades, China has been deepening its footprint in the region. It's now the top trading partner for South America, with state firms investing heavily in energy, infrastructure, and mining. The Chancay port in Peru, part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, is a prime example, a $3.5 billion megaproject that could transform regional trade, but it's not just about money. China's offering scholarships, cultural programs, and even military ties to countries like Venezuela. At the China-CELAC Forum, President Xi pledged 300 small-scale livelihood projects, vocational training, and Chinese language education. These moves build soft power, making China a go-to partner for Latin American nations. There's also a geopolitical edge. The U.S. sees China as a strategic competitor in the region, especially as Beijing courts countries like Cuba and Venezuela. By easing travel and boosting exchanges, China aims to solidify alliances and counter U.S. influence. Carola Ramon from the Argentine Council of Foreign Relations says this policy will broaden exchange across the region, not just with the 5 countries. Could this spark a new era of Sino-Latin American partnership? Or will it raise concerns about China's growing sway? That's the debate unfolding now. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. This policy isn't without controversy. Some worry it's a one-sided deal. China gets easier access to Latin American markets and resources, but what do Latin American countries gain long-term? Critics argue that China's investments, like the Chancay port, often benefit Chinese firms more than local economies. There's also the risk of debt dependency, as seen in some Belt and Road projects elsewhere. On the flip side, Latin American nations want to diversify their trade partners beyond the US, and China's offering a lifeline. But with US-China tensions heating up, especially with potential new tariffs under a second Trump administration, Latin America could get caught in the crossfire. Will this visa policy truly level the playing field, or is it a strategic move to tilt the board in China's favor? So, what's driving this and where's it headed? China's visa-free policy is rooted in its post-COVID push for global connectivity and economic recovery. It's also a response to Latin America's hunger for new markets and investment. The effects: expect more business deals, tourist flows, and cultural exchanges by 2026. If successful, China might expand this policy to other Latin American countries, like Mexico or Colombia, reshaping regional dynamics. But the future depends on execution. Can China and Latin America bridge the cultural and logistical gaps? Will other nations push for similar access? And how will the US respond to China's growing clout? This policy could be a catalyst for a new era of cooperation or a flashpoint in global rivalries. China's visa-free policy for Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, and Uruguay is more than a travel perk. It's a strategic play to boost trade, tourism, and influence in Latin America. From opening new business doors to sparking cultural exchanges, this move could reshape ties between two distant regions. But challenges like distance, language barriers, and geopolitical tensions could complicate the journey. One thing's clear, China's betting big on Latin America and the world is watching. What do you think? Will this policy bring China and Latin America closer, or is it a risky move? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you found this deep dive helpful, and subscribe to our channel for more global news breakdowns. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.